Hello, my name is Paul Roback. I am the chair of the ESP Professional Development Committee. Thank you for joining us today for the ESP webinar on Ready, Set, Retire. We have a wonderful panel of four colleagues that have retired as recently as this past year uh, and a few years before that as well. Uh, Today, we are fortunate that we're doing something a little bit different than our normal webinars in that we actually had a subcommittee of the National ESP Professional Development Committee brainstorm ideas on topics that would be of value to our colleagues across the country. And this topic came to the forefront. So I'd like to thank those subcommittee members, including Gwen Stewart from Ohio State, who chaired the subcommittee for us. Izette McNeely from Alabama and Lori Griner from Virginia all contributed to today's webinar. So with that, I'd like to introduce our panel to you. We have Juanita Reed-Boniface from Minnesota, Sharon Strouse from Ohio State, Tyrone Gentry from Kentucky, and Julie Buck from Idaho. And today's format, we will go through we'll ask one question of the panel after they do introductions. We'll ask one question, they'll respond, and then we'll check the chat box. So if you have any questions, we'll check the chat box and ask that of the panel. And then after that, we'll move on to the next question. And we'll continue that format until we're out of time for today. So with that, I'll allow Juanita to introduce herself to our colleagues today.
Well, good afternoon, or well, it's good morning, I guess, in some time zones. But it's a real honor to be asked to be a part of this panel. I began my extension career in Nebraska after graduating from the University of Nebraska. I first served as an extension home economist in Otoe County, Nebraska. A couple years later, we relocated to Minnesota, where I secured a position on the University of Minnesota State 4-H faculty, first serving as a graduate assistant and then later full-time from 1966 to until I retired in 1992. My circumstances in retirement might be different from some of you in that in 1991, the fall of 1991, we learned that there was going to be some major budget issues in terms of the university, and there would be elimination of at least 40 state positions. And so my situation was that if we were within a certain age and a certain length of service, we were eligible for a creative retirement opportunity. And we were given an opportunity to then submit a proposal to administration for kind of, okay, on what terms will I take this offer? So I did this after much, trying decision making, because I wasn't very old. I didn't think I was old enough to retire. I was 53 at the time, and I wasn't quite ready to, quit working. But I did negotiate negotiate a proposal, and which was then accepted. So I ended up with a 20-year fixed annuity, $200 per month supplemental benefit. I negotiated for 3 years of free tuitions because I felt I would need to retool in order to, start some kind of a new enterprise. And they granted me all of that. Then the first thing I knew after I was all that kind of paperwork was done, then they had to hire me back because we were in the middle of the season for State Fair. I was the State Fair superintendent, and it didn't seem prudent to go on and try to bring somebody in the 1st of July when we were 2 months away from State Fair. And so I actually I actually did that job then they kept me on because there was some major leadership training for which I had received the national workshop training into the new year. So by the time I was all done, quote, officially, it was almost mid 1993. So, and then in the meantime, one of the best things that happened is that my husband's business had some reorganization and so on, so that he actually ended up excuse me, ended up retiring about at the same time I did, and that made things really smooth, and it allowed us to develop some new things that we together that we didn't think we were going to be able to do. So what have I done since? That was the next question somebody asked me. What have I done since? Well, I'll tell you. We've done some work or what have I done now?
Juanita,
We've done,
can
yep.
we hold off on what you've done since? Well,
Oh, okay. Oh, you don't want that long list yet. Okay.
we're still doing introductions, Juanita. That's okay.
Okay. Well, I
Uh,
thought this was part of introductions. I wasn't sure.
Sure, that's all right. Well, thanks, Juanita. I love that creative retirement opportunity. That definitely caught my ear, and uh, that sounds extensionese if I ever heard it, right? So,
Yeah, right.
thanks, Sharon. I'll have opportunity for you to introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Sharon Strouse. I went through 30 years at Ohio State University in extension, and like Juanita, though, I decided to retire when I was younger, just almost 54, Juanita, so
Oh,
about a
well.
month away, but that was in another decade. That was in 2011. So I think it's good that we've got some different perspectives here. Um, I know there's going to be a question about what helped you make that decision, so I'm not going to talk about that now. So when I retired in 2011, I then immediately started a business name that could take on lots of different opportunities. That was Design Impressions. And then from that, I was working with Byways, and I now am the executive director of the National Scenic Byway Foundation. So 30 years, you decide, there's other decisions. I retired from community development, but I had my degrees in family economics. So like Juanita, I was doing 4-H to begin with. Then I did then I did home ec. And then I was at a county office that didn't have an agriculture educator for about a year. So when you're at a county office, you do everything. And then I went to regional community development when towards the end of my career. So those are some things that I brought to the table for my retirement. That's it, Paul.
Thanks, Sharon. Well, that's exciting that you've had opportunity to, I think, do every program we offer an extension just about throughout your career. Julie, I'll give you a chance, opportunity to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. Let me pull up my paper. I am Julie Buck. I live in Idaho Falls, which is in southeast Idaho, about 2 hours south of the National Yellowstone Park. And I'm a registered dietitian. So I worked in hospitals and clinics for about 20 years. And then I worked in higher education for 10 years. And I finished by working at the University of Idaho Extension as a family consumer science educator, as a county agent, and as a county chair in 2 different counties. So I spent 3 years in one county, and then I transferred and applied. Well, I applied and interviewed for a different county, which was closer to my hometown. And I retired from there in February of this year after working there for 7 years as the county agent, county chair, and as an extension educator.
Thanks, Julie. And Tyrone.
Tyrone Gentry. I am a retired 4-H agent from Kentucky. I worked 1 month shy of 30 years. I was able to retire last year at age 53. So I guess me and Juanita, we're the 53-year-old group. Um, Currently, I am the second vice president for the National ESP board. And I look forward to bringing retiree issues and lifetime member opportunities to the forefront as we move forward in the coming years on the national board. Thank you, Paul.
Great, thanks, Tyrone. So a lot of varying experience on our panel today, from program areas to parts of the country, years of service and extension, as year as when they retired, as recently as this year and last year, till back in the 90s as well. Maybe before some of us even started our extension career, which is wonderful. Definitely an advantage when you can retire at a younger age. So with that, we'll move on to the first question. And as a reminder to our guests today, if you have any questions of any of the panelists, please put them in the chat and we'll monitor them. And then after each question, and the responses from it will go to the chat box to see if there's any questions. So the first question is, for our panelists, how did you know when it was time to retire? And we heard a little bit from Juanita already that she was provided a creative retirement opportunity. So I don't know, Juanita, if you wanted to share anything else about how to know when it was time to retire. Yep, you're muted, Juanita.
Well, I don't know. For me, it sort of came out of the blue because of the situation within within extension service, and actually it was throughout the university at that period of time. I mean, there was like no choice but to having to make some real serious cuts. So, but it was a difficult decision because, for one thing, I I had just kind of gotten my kids through college, and they were starting families and the marriages. We were kind of through that phase. And so I was expecting to be maybe working another 10 years and sort of, build up my retirement and those kind of things that, they tell you to do in preparation. But that wasn't going to happen. And so that was a real factor. Was I going to be okay into the future, and what opportunities did I have? But I think so. I do think your family situation, your financial base, your health for many people is a factor. Uh, and sometimes, you have some goals and hopes and dreams of what you want to do in retirement. And so if you want to do those things, you may have to plan when you're going to retire so you can do those, do what you would like to do.
Thanks, Juanita. Yeah, and I think that's pretty similar situation to what maybe some colleagues across the country are going through now as well, that
Yeah,
retirement with federal funding the way it is, and
right.
state budgets, that retirement may be an opportunity that comes quicker than others realize. So I'll kind of maybe jump around the panelists a little bit, because I know Tyrone may have retired a little bit sooner than originally planned as well.
Sure did, Paul. I can remember being asked, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire? And it was always 10 years. The answer is I'd always like to work 10 more years. Always, that was the answer for a decade, and that number never did change or go down. And I think the COVID years for me were difficult. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and so I think that kind of sped that timeline up some. I remember early last year, my secretary asked, to ask that question, when are you going to retire? And that was the first time that I'd ever said, maybe in the next year. I think the stress, the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. meetings, the 7 day a week meetings, it
Yeah.
had just worn on me in the years. I was a single parent and I love traveling, and there was lots of things I think that had accumulated. Some personal choices expedited that timeline.
Hmm.
But it's looking back on it, I think kind of what Juanita just said. There comes a point where there are things I wanted to do in my retirement time that if I didn't start now, I might not be able to. I love to travel, and I tend to travel solo. So, I want to do that while I'm still mobile and while I'm still able and healthy enough to do that. So I think, there's lots of those things, but I think the hardest thing is another question that's coming is making that jump. And I'm glad I did. Thanks, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Tyrone. I'll move on to Sharon.
Well, I think personally, for me, I think that some of the other reasons why people retired or thought about it have already been mentioned, but I also have cumulative experiences where people have told me why they're choosing to retire now. So sometimes there's, Juanita mentioned it a little bit, family situations. Maybe you have an elderly parent that needs you, or, maybe there's children that with special needs or something. So there's always those. I think one of the biggest things we haven't talked about, though, is cleaning up your professional commitments. You don't really want to leave until you've finished that research, or you've got something in the hopper that you really want to follow through on or finish that commitment. So I think that's another thing. And when you have finished those commitments, I think you should reflect and think if it's time now, whatever that time now is, to move on to something else, because you'll always have plenty of opportunities. You've been prepared for that. Another thing that hasn't been mentioned is technology. Juanita talked about, not having a professional assistant, personal assistant. So technology has changed many of us in the educator role. We're our own secretaries, basically. We're handed a personal computer, and that became, we had to learn that technology. But I do think that the times are changing every single day, and through COVID and everything else, I think that being retooled, having to face retooling because of technology changes, is another reason that you may want to choose retirement, because it takes a lot of time to do that. So, Paul, those are some of my reasons why to think about retirement.
Great, thanks, Sharon. And Julie.
Yes, I'm the odd duck here because I retired in my 60s, but I'd already had, spent 30 years as a registered dietitian. I still am a registered dietitian, but most of my work had been in higher education or in clinics. So for me, extension was my last leg of my career. And I don't think it was an age issue. I kept telling people, I don't think retirement's about age. I think it's about desire. It's about the when and the why. So I describe that the moment I knew it was time was when for me, I realized that I had to work 2 more years to become a full professor. And I didn't need that professionally. I'd already earned my doctorate. And I felt that, staying on to get that distinction wasn't necessary for me at all. And, once I came to that point and I said, my husband's already retired. He's older than I am, and I want to leave some energy in the tank to do all those things I've wanted to do. So it really became a time of, okay, can we do it? So we met with financial planners, multiple, probably 3. And just to over the years, though, we spaced it out by about, maybe I started 8 years ago, and then we met with one at 5, and then we met with one actually just a few months before I retired, just one more time, because, I had had multiple types of retirements from all my other jobs and careers I'd had over the years. And so I didn't have it all bundled up like the other extension educators here. So I had to get my head wrapped around the different components of my retirement and what that would look like financially for our future. So all of those things played in. My husband made it look amazingly wonderful to be retired. He was retired a whole year before I retired. I would go to work, he'd still be in bed. I'm like, okay, this is looking pretty awesome. Plus, he could do whatever he wanted. And I just thought, I retired with 42 years of work career in to my sum total of careers. And so I really felt like professionally, I had reached the point that I felt like I could say, I'm ready.
Thanks, Julie. But what a wide variety of experiences, which is always fascinating. So So to be transparent, I've been in extension for 24 years. So I'm kind of at that spot now where I'm thinking a lot more about the retirement opportunities as time goes on here. And what I liked about the spectrum is like you never know when these opportunities may present themselves, right? That retirement may present itself sooner than you originally thought. So you kind of have to be prepared and ready for if you choose to embrace that opportunity at an earlier time period versus someone like Sharon who worked and Tyrone, I worked for Extension for a long period of time, and then Julie who had several different careers and retirements and all the financial decisions, thinking through all that. And I really appreciated that insight of meeting with financial planners years in advance to uh, help you just make that decision when the time is right. And then I also heard kind of a common theme was it's a personal decision, right? And when you know when you know is kind of what I've heard from others that whether or not it's you feel like you've reached what you wanted to attain out of your career, or you're at a point where you can hand things off to others, or you're just tired of looking at your spouse who already retired before you, laying in bed and you have to get up and go to work. Those are all good motivating factors, as well as, thinking what life will be like after retirement and uh, wanting to embrace that. And if you're and wanting to get done everything you can in that time of your life as well. So thanks for sharing those insights from the panelists. Um, Looks like we have a question in the chat.
Paul, I think is addressing one of the things that it's addressing, and it was on my list, is this opportunity to get health care.
Okay, great. So I didn't get a chance to read through it yet. So can actually
And
retire
that is
from
a big consideration. And from other people that I know, from Idaho to California to Minnesota, is that every state's going to be a little different with what they offer, where the what the pricing is for hospitals you can get special connections with. So it is a big deal. So when Julie met with the financial advisors, the other thing to do is meet with your insurance people to find out what are your options for other additions to your medical health care plan. It's very different in different states. The cost is different. The availability of specialists, everything is different.
and the benefits each university provides, right? What can be converted
Right.
potentially into funds to use for healthcare to bridge you to Medicare. Yeah. Great suggestions. Thank you, Sharon. Moving on to the next question for the panelists. What's one thing you wish you would have known before retiring? And Juanita, what's one thing you would have wished? And remember to unmute. There we go.
Well, I kind of struggled with that. I struggled with that question, but I guess a couple things. One was really missing the people contact and the daily contact with other professionals. And I didn't realize, well, I'm a people person basically. So, I love to have people around and at least um, check ideas, think through something with me on this and that and the other thing. And then the other thing, as Sharon has talked about a little bit with the technology, I was so totally dependent upon good clerical staff, and I had some wonderful, wonderful people that worked with me over the years. And to come out of working and having that kind of service right at your fingertips, and all of a sudden you're having to learn how about use computers because I never used a computer on the job, and and not having that service, I really discovered how much that was. I realized I wish I'd known more about it, and I wish I'd had realized that that was going to be a big gap, a particularly gap for me. So I think those were the two things, and then well, just kind of focusing yourself and you know, what am I going to do now? What are the opportunities? And I can give you a list of the ones that I've gotten into.
Thanks, Juanita. I often hear that it's the opportunities to do stuff don't seem to go away, but in retirement, you can be much more selective on the ones you want to
Right.
pursue. It's great.
Oh, there's a
Sharon-
question in the chat.
Thanks. Can you read it for me? When
She's asking if you did see a professional related to finances. Did you work with an external or an internal institutional person for planning? And then there's also a good suggestion of a book for this same topic.
Oh,
Thanks, Gwen. So maybe Julie, maybe it's directed a little bit more towards you. Did you meet with both external financial advisors as well as university before you retired?
Yes, we did because my husband's type of retirement and mine was totally different. I'm an educator. He's not. He didn't know anything about my 401s or my retirement plans or so we just met with those specific for what type of um, company we wanted to invest in. We also made sure about, we had family members who had gone through the Medicare process, and we have an unusual situation with health benefits. So all of that was taken in consideration. Because my husband retired ahead of me, he just helped streamline me through the Medicare and Social Security process really easily. And so we met with both. I found that the institution-based weren't as helpful as the private, just personally.
Great, thanks, Julie. See another great book recommendation in the chat that everyone might want to notice and maybe make note of. So what's one thing, Sharon, that you wish you would have known before?
Well, I had already moved from a county office to a regional office, and there wasn't anybody going to replace me. But I wish I would have known how little anybody wanted your resources. I wouldn't have packed up so much. I wouldn't have organized so much. I wouldn't have put it in my basement, all that stuff. I still have stuff I have to get rid of from 10 years. You always think somebody's going to want everything, but the technology has changed and everything else. So you just get, your external flash drive, put everything on your external flash drive, and walk away and let somebody else throw things away for you. I wish I would have known how little anybody was going to want anything I had.
Sharon, I think one of the things I discovered was and I've learned later, is the importance of keeping track of things that should go to your university archives. I had the experience that I had left things in very good order. Unfortunately, our offices were moved several months after I retired, and some unknowing clerical person didn't realize that some of the records that we had carefully kept since the beginning of 4-H in the state got tossed. And once discovering that, it has behooved us, those of us who've retired and accumulated things and maybe made the mistake of bringing too much home, to to really sort through and get things into the archives that should be there.
Great, thanks, Juanita. How about you, Julie? What's one thing you wish you would have known before retiring?
Just as we needed to edit our workload a lot in working in extension, you also need to do that in retirement. People
Yeah.
are gonna want, like, I just got an offer to go to lunch this week. I've just picked up helping with a grandchild. I'm the medical power of attorney for my sister. both of my parents are deceased, so now it's just my sisters I'm helping with. But all of the sudden, like you're the person that's available. So I think just having like this is the for me, I'm thinking this is the amount of percent. This is the percent because there's no way to put an amount on it, but what percent of my time is volunteer? Because I still volunteer as a master food safety advisor for food preservation. I chose that as one of my volunteer choices. But also, how when do you schedule you in? Schedule you in. If you need alone time, if you need sewing time, if you need gardening time, you've got to schedule you in, just like, uh, you know, it just is amazing. What are you retiring to?
Yeah, right.
I wasn't trying to get away from extension. I really loved, 10 years in, I still loved it. So, what was I retiring to? So I took up quilting 5 years ago, and that's been one of my, I've got everything behind me. I've got it clouded out right now, but you would see all of my quilting fabric. So that's waiting for me. I'm also really big on writing my own history, and I'm also going to do a memoir on another part of my life as well that's been a big part of it. So yeah, that's some big things that I wish I would have known is what am I retiring to and just schedule time for myself.
Great, thanks, Julie. Yes, protect your schedule, right?
Right.
Just like in the professional environment. Tyrone, what's one thing you wish you would have known?
Looking back, I think if I had known that I could have made it, I would have retired 3 years earlier. I could have gone in 2021, but I had that big fear that I just couldn't make it. Um, so, looking back, I wish I had took a little more effort in looking at what my monthly expenses was and just looking at some of the hard details just to see if I could actually retire. Insurance was one of those big fears. But now that I'm almost a year past that retirement date, it was much easier to make it than I expected. Um, I think, there are options to uh, earn additional money if you're looking to, needing that to make it work that doesn't have the time commitment or the stress. So I think looking back, I just wish I'd put a little more effort in earlier and trying to determine exactly what it would take to retire. And I didn't do that.
Good life advice. Thanks, Tyrone. Thank you for all of our participants monitoring the chat and adding in suggestions and helping each other out in there. It's nice to see. The next question we have for the panelists, how can you prepare your office for a smooth handoff to the next extension educator? So I think we heard a little bit about this already. We'll allow the panelists to discuss this a little bit more. So Juanita.
Well, I guess, kind of number one is to clean the files and look around your office and see, okay, what are my personal effects here that need to for sure leave with me, and what are things that need to be left here, and what are things do I need to make copies of because I want to keep in my own personal records for for one reason or another. And for me, because I had been the coordinator of our state awards program for several years, and I had had responsibility in leadership development both for youth and adults. Being sure that all of those records and curriculum materials were, in order and were identified, because at the point that I retired, things were, all this reorganization, etc. I had no idea whether or not my position would be refilled, or probably my responsibilities would be absorbed someplace else, and someplace else in another person's portfolio. So I guess I did my best to try to leave things in order, in an orderly way, and carefully filed with the standard system in the department. so that anyone following or picking up some of those responsibilities could easily do it, because that was a primary thing that I did. And then like I said, selected key things that I wanted to keep with me, particularly things I had written, or references that I felt I might use in my next life after extension.
Thanks, Juanita. How about you, Sharon?
Well, I'm going to respond not just my retirement from extension, much like Juanita, same things, but I'm thinking about the technology. Right now, being the executive director of a foundation, we are right now trying to gather everything together, all the passwords to the places we belong to,
Yeah,
all the transition that has to happen from the executive director or the educator, same thing. So if you're in that technology world, one of the things I was thinking of that I could have said last time, things I would have known, go buy yourself, this is advice, go buy yourself a personal computer, get it all set up as your work computer, and get the work computer ready to be passed on to somebody else. Because if you walk away without a computer now, you're losing all the connections and things that you might want, like people's emails and things. That
oh yeah.
if that email system goes away, but
Mm.
you have personal connections, like you said, Juanita, those friendships and things. And if
Right.
you walk away without thinking about that, so that's my advice. Go get yourself a personal computer that's yours that you can walk out with, and whether it's allowed or not, do it anyway, and get yourself a personal computer and get the stuff on the computer that you want from the office, and start working using that. And then you have time to clean up that office computer and get personal stuff off.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Sharon. Some great advice there. And I believe before we started the Zoom, you had mentioned uh, advice of starting a business when you.
Oh, everybody needs to start a business in your state. It's not that hard. Might cost you $10 or something to get registered. But if you start a business, then all those needs you have to set up your personal office can be written off as a business expense.
Right.
And you need to think about that and choose a business name that's pretty generic. So that if you get asked to do some consulting or something, that you can just put it in as a business, and make a little money from that. But I would suggest that everybody start a business.
Well, I can second that, Sharon, because that's the very thing that we did. In fact, I had to have a business in order for the university to hire me back for that period of time that I referred to earlier. And so my husband and I did launch our own independent business. We used our initials because they blended together, JRB Associates. And our goal was to work as consultants in leadership development, education, and advocacy for agriculture. And we also did some retail sales of wool products because that was his passion. And we had a wide variety of opportunities. And I did some work for national organizations. I wrote curriculum. I did leadership training, the thing that I probably love to do the most. I my father when my it happened that my father passed away the same year that my uh, I retired, and I inherited 20 acres and 20 cows, which took me back to my agriculture roots and reconnected me with uh, professional related and volunteer organizations in the beef industry particularly, and opened just all kinds of doors, and also gave an opportunity for a place to put my business expenses. So there's there's lots of things work out.
Yeah, Tyrone could put his travel expenses there if he just had a business opportunity on the other side.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Sharon, Juanita, I happen to own a travel agency, so
There you
I
go.
understand this
Oh, well,
concept of a business. I
yeah.
think if you're looking at retiring early, because I'm in that gap where I can't touch my retirement, I can't
Oh,
touch my Social Security. So,
okay.
owning or having a business that you are in control of does allow
Yeah,
you those tax benefits. It also allows you to be in complete control of your schedule. So I would echo those sentiments as well as think about your skills, think about the things that you are interested in. Because retiring, I didn't want to go to the house and sit on the couch 24/7. I still needed something to be engaged in. So a business allows you some tax benefits and also allows you something to be meaningfully engaged with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it keeps you, at least for me, it has kept all my a lot of networks that I wouldn't have that I would have probably lost once I retired, and you know, I knew too many cool people in through my extension contacts and the 4-H kids that I think about that came through the system and now are doing prominent things here and there. And I didn't want to lose that. So that's one thing when when you're involved in, if it's at volunteer basis or you have a business, you really maintain a lot of those important networks.
Paul, that's a good comment that Juanita's making. It in the chat. Someone mentioned that their predecessor left a contact information for partnering, that it was a digital copy of those great contacts that that person had developed for her to start out with, which was a great tool.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks, Glenn. And I think that might tie into Julie as well. Julie, would you like to share how you prepared for the handoff?
Sure. So I'll make it 100%. I started a business in 1995, and that business ended in early 2000, but I started another business in 2007, so independent of extension, and I've been running an LLC since that time. So that is, that's always been going on. So really, I've had a full-time and a part-time job. So, but that's my LLC, so all of our expenses can be bounced off of that. So, but I want to go back to the office and the extension files as well, because, coming into extension in my latter part of my career life, it was absolutely overwhelming, the amount of documentation, and especially being county chair and being in charge of all the budgets and everything. So I would suggest that you meet with your university human resources department. They have a retirement schedule. They have things you need to do before you retire, and they would like to know 5 years ahead. Well, I didn't give them 5 years ahead because I kept waffling and waffling, but they have documents that need to be completed. They want to know if you're going to maintain the medical insurance. They want to know a lot of things. So that would be one of my big suggestions. You also, my supervisor wanted to know my 2 month, when it's 2 months out. So I did give her a formal retirement letter at 2 months out away from retirement. But way before that, you've got to close out all of your research projects that you are the PI on. You've got to assign the PI to someone else. So if you can close out your grants and your PI, your projects with human subjects at your university, I closed out the ones that were fizzled out and done. But I also was PI, so I had to transfer that to someone else. And so you have to have
Yeah.
those conversations and have those agreements and transfer all the study documents over to them. But you've also got to stop applying for grants. You've got to expense all your grant funds. So you've got to pace yourself with that, because our grant applications come out around January. So you've got to think that ahead of time. It's weird when the grants come out and you don't apply for them, but it's somebody else's time in life to, go for those competitive grants. And then, looking at the files, I went to two counties. One county, all I had was a pencil in my drawer. There were no electronic files, there were no paper files, there were no books, there were no nothing, like nothing at all in this county office. So that was the example that was set for me, is leave nothing. So I stayed there for 3 years, and then I transferred to another county where I was county chair, and I had a shelf of books, and that was it. I didn't have anything in the drawers, nothing in the files, no resource, nothing. Nothing was left for me. So my pattern was to leave nothing and accept that I wished I would have had a jump drive. So I did what others have mentioned is I left a card in my drawer. I don't even know if my furniture will stay because I still haven't been replaced. But I left a card with a jump in it, and it's all the key connections and collaborators in the county. And just, if I can do anything to help you, here's my cell phone number. Wish you well. But I shredded or distributed to the new county chair. I shredded a lot of protected information. I have dropped things off, but the files are pretty empty at my office, and that's how it was left for me. So that's how I left it, except for county funded books or things that our district director or extension director at the university had left for me. That's how I left it. So hope that helps.
Thanks, Julie. So, again, a wide variety of advice and experiences from retirees that had a lot of contacts provided to them and left a lot, and others that started with nothing and and passed on about as much to whomever may be next. But yeah, it's always nice to leave those contacts, have those contacts available in case someone should need them. So a lot of great advice in the chat box about getting external hard drives and saving documents. I like the individual that mentioned having two hard drives so that you can sync them, and external hard drives so you can leave one with the university when it's time to leave, and you can take one with you so that you have those resources when you're ready to walk out. Going back, there was a question about handling medical expenses. I don't know if any of you had of our panelists had that the challenge of bridging medical expenses between university benefits and Medicare. Specific question is, how have you handled medical expenses in the absence of provided insurance policies? If anybody had advice or experiences with that.
Well, I guess I can just say I haven't had any issues at all with medical expenses. And I think maybe there's two factors. One is that that I retired under what I call the old system, federal system. I mean, I was a federal employee, and so all of my retirement came under the federal system, and the older system. So I think that maybe means my situation was different from others who have, I think many states now, everybody retires under a university system and or a state system of some kind, and that has more complications. But it is important to keep on top of those things. The best thing that's happened to me in terms of retirement and medical was the passing of the Fairness Act, because before that, my husband, I could not claim any of my husband's Social Security benefits, which were well, they were reasonable. Let's put it that way. Like he said, you make a lot of friends working for a co-op, but you don't make a lot of money, and that's true. So, but in any way, when that finally got passed a year ago, about now, I guess it was, that was just really a major blessing, and I know affected other people in my in my age and stage and age group in terms of our retirement, in terms of our benefits.
Thanks, Juanita. So I know that for the others that retired under state systems, each state is different. So looking at, meeting with your internal retirement planners and external retirement planners, and really looking at the benefits that each university offers to potentially help bridge the difference between your current employment and your age, and when Medicare will start kicking in. Ellen, I see your hand is raised. Thanks for waiting.
That's okay. Yeah, I put in the chat, but I just thought I would ask. So I have a question for the panelists. We have changing focuses sometimes in extension, in terms of priority areas. And so I was just wondering if any of you, if you felt like a concern about whether your position would be preserved or maintained, even if part-time, did any of that make you wait a little bit because you wanted to make sure you had more commitment on the part of the administration to continue what you built? I don't know if that pertains to any of you, but I just wondered if that affected your decision or not.
Mhm.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
There was, well, as I kind of hinted before, I guess there was, at the time that I retired, there was a lot of shifting sand that going on with, with the total reorganization. And so there really wasn't anything, clear or any reason to feel like I needed to totally really worry about that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, leadership development, which was the main thing in my portfolio at the time, I knew that would go on in some way.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how or who, but that would not, totally get lost from the system.
Okay.
Ellen, I have to say that in the community where I live, I had worked in the county for many, many years, and then I went to a regional position. But, there's been a lot of downsizing. We all know that.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity to volunteer. I mean, I still get called. I was telling people before that I'm going to do strategic planning for a nonprofit group here next month. And I get asked to do a lot of things that they don't really have the expertise for anymore in the county. So as a volunteer, if you're committed to your community, they're still going to ask you. If you feel legally you can't, well, then don't. But you could also open a business and just be a consultant for $1. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
you could make it work and do what you love and still help your community. I have a list of volunteer things, and so I do that. And I'm like Julie, I protect my time and I do the volunteer things that are high priority for me. I have one other thing I thought on my advice, and that Julie, it relates to Julie doing something that you love and doing something personal for you. The month after I left Extension, I had other opportunities, but I started a book club with all my best friends, and we
Oh,
still meet today. We've been meeting for 13 years now.
that's
And
great.
we meet once a month at each other's homes. We've brought new people in, met new people. And I say to those people, we don't really meet to read the book. You know that, right? We meet because we're going to take care of each other as we get older. So Juanita, you probably have friends like that too, that you meet with because you're going to take care of those people as you get older.
That's right. But speaking of books and book club, one of the things I did, and when Tyrone mentioned the COVID years, I did write a book about my life during that period of time. So one of the things that led to was making some, well, not only doing book sales, but also speaking to book clubs and some groups that, were interested in how do you go about doing this and all that kind of stuff. So you're right, Sharon, there are all kinds of avenues, and I find myself in situations because I live near the Twin Cities and have a number of connections in Minneapolis that, there's a lot of people that don't know too much about agriculture and what we do and why we do it and how we do it. And even though I'm not living directly on the farm and I'm not home doing, hands-on work with the cattle now, I still know what we do and why we do it. And I can still talk about it, and I can still bring educational experiences and resources to many situations. And there's always opportunities for that, and I love it.
So I'd like to thank our panelists today for joining us and sharing their wisdom with all of us. And helping getting ready to retire. Lots of great questions. We are at the end of our hour, so I do want to acknowledge people's times and make sure that we end on time. I know the panelists are all available by email, so if you'd like to get a hold of them, you can reach out. You can email me if you want to get those email addresses. We'll try to send them out as well in the follow-up communications to all of you. Next month, October, we do not have a webinar because we have the national conference. So I hope to be able to see many of you at the national conference. It'd be an exciting time in Fort Worth. I'm excited for that. And then our next session will start up again on November 10th. And the topic is, are you disability aware? So thank you all for your time today. And I hope to see many of you at the conference in a couple weeks. Take care.
Thank you.